You said you were ready for a new challenge, and then I started jumping, and then the dog.
Yeah, I think meeting you was definitely, well, firstly, right off the bat, meeting you was one thing. I mean, you're very beautiful, which is something I might say to Kate Winslet. And Kate will go like, really? You say that to all the actresses? And I go, no, I do not say that to all the actresses. As a matter of fact, she does have this kind of very natural inner beauty for herself, and she's amazing. But yeah, you come across as very beautiful visually for me as a photographer. That's obviously very pleasing. And then when we were having lunch, I noticed that you were transforming as we were eating, and as the food arrived and we were eating and chatting, the conversation got quite interesting, and the consequences of it was you became a different person from the photographer's point of view. When I went back home and we had you over to the house afterwards, believe it or not, you said, what changes have I made? I have made a drastic change to my diet. Just on the basis of what you've been speaking and talking about. Now, Nicoletta is fully on board, because I said, Nicoletta, like, she'd give me a portion of food, it would be kind of large, and it'd be like, what do you want today? Some steak, this and that. And I'm like, no, everything changes. I don't want anything big anymore. It's got to go really heavy plant-based. And, like yesterday, I just had a melon sliced in half, and that was it. And it was more than enough for me, so I think I cut down massively a lot of things. I don't want anything processed. I forbid her to go anywhere near the refrigerator where they store the sliced up stuff. And yes, that's a change, so I'm like, became very aware.
You did have some processed food. Everything is processed. An egg is processed. Boiled egg is processed, but ultra processed. You didn't. Well, did you or did you not eat a lot of that stuff before? Because you have been vegetarian your entire life, right?
Well, I was certainly up till my early 20s.
Yeah.
And only since I've been traveling as a traveling photographer did diet change, because conditions were, well, we never really used to question it. Like, you would get on a plane, you'd eat whatever's put in front of you, you'd get on a job, you'll go to some country which is maybe in Asia or in Africa or wherever the continent would be. The meat diet was very heavy. And often it was very difficult to say, do you have any vegetables? So that would be very hard to ask.
Yeah.
I would say that meeting you, I've already had a pretty decent clean diet, but meeting you was very good, because it confirmed a lot of things that I knew about, but I never really acted on it as a kind of a policy for a way to live. I think as a combination of meeting you, at the same time having a bionic hip in place.
But Max, have you noticed any significant differences in your body, your mind, your performance, your thinking, your cognitive functions overall, after you have done these, quite significant changes? Do you feel different? And how do you feel after eating something light compared to some more,
there's a vast difference. Lethargic, lethargic is like kind of a heaviness and a laziness.
Yeah, no energy.
Yeah, a lot of low energy. And then in the head clarity is lacking. It's not, the word clarity is a good word to use, I think, because it's what I notice is that there is definitely very, very good meat to eat. I will not take that away. A good, well-raised, steak that's cooked in a certain way, I won't say no, I've not enjoyed it, or a chicken, whatever it is. But generally speaking, I found that let's say 85%, 90% diet that I'm eating right now, which is vastly plant-based, mostly fish if I have to go to the protein, I've noticed that the calmness in the body, the anxiety is driven out as well. I noticed that the energy is constantly there. Not so easy to upset, you know. It's very like when before on this kind of fake kind of a American protein diet, you know, it's very easy to get upset and what they call offended quickly. Like, oh, why am I getting offended? No, I think that was what vast difference is. That is a clarity of thinking, and also suppleness in the body. You know, the elasticity. I was like very tight, you know, very always going around like this, and now suddenly I feel a lot looser. So a lot more work to do, but I think that, you know, I've got a good another 20 years of work in me, so I don't want to sabotage that. Yeah, the cooperation, that was it. That's it. That's the one thing that I wish for you to have, and I wish you could have a platform. As you know, you need a big megaphone, you know, big platform. Because if a country like America changes completely and really says, okay, about turn, everybody at school, this is your diet. At school, you're going to learn from the beginning. This is what it's all about from a very young age, you know. Then you could end up having a generation that would absolutely flip that around. And it takes a big country like the United States to get the world's attention, because they always, certainly in Europe, they look over there and go, oh, look what's going on over there. And I don't think we get enough education at all in possibly the most important thing you do in your day, in your week, in your life, and that is to eat. Oh my God, what an important choice that is.
What an important choice. And Max, I couldn't agree more. I mean, education is fundamental to change things. And we need to really start with the kids. I mean, I would say we need to get food and nutrition education into kindergartens. Kids need to be taught about what is the impact of their food choices on their health, on our planet, on animals, all of that. And they also need to learn where do my food come from? Because a lot of kids now these days growing up in cities, they have no idea. They have never been to a farm. They don't understand where the food comes from. The food workers that have been striving to make that food ending up on their plates, how their conditions are. They don't know about the animals in the value chain. And they for sure don't know about the impact of our food on the planet. So that is absolutely essential. And I think forming early on habits, absolutely necessary. But having said that, I don't think education is enough. And it's not only me thinking that. We have substantial knowledge and evidence that knowledge and information is important, but it's not sufficient to change behavior. And take US, I mean, that is an example where you have literally exported supersize me diets to the world, and it's very difficult in many places to find real foods. You have food deserts where it's almost impossible to find fresh fruit or vegetable. It's basically ultra processed, it's wrapped in plastic, and it's food-like items, but it's for sure not food that keeps you healthy and that is good for the planet. So that is why my foundation, the EAT Foundation, and this UN Food System Summit and many actors around the world are now working to transform the entire system, because it's not enough to change one bit of it. If we could transform education, it would be amazing, but we still would need to back that up with policies and with business solutions. So healthy, sustainable, and nutritious and delicious food becomes available and affordable to everybody, because it's also a problem in terms of affordability. 3 billion people on the planet cannot afford a healthy, nutritious diet today, which is ridiculous.
Is ridiculous, yeah. By the way, one of the things that I witnessed this week that was brilliant was watching Cristiano Ronaldo push the Coca-Cola bottles out of the way.
I love that.
Right?
That's our man, Max.
That's good. You know,
that's
now
awesome.
We need more and more of that kind of display of like
Yes.
in how many, yes, that's it. We want those people to sit there who are like superheroes of children, teenagers, even adults who would love, you know, the football and the champions. And today they're playing the European soccer. It's Italy versus Wales, you know, and afterwards they have a press conference. They should make sure if they're sponsoring any of those kind of food companies or drinks or beverages, they should push out all the garbage and say, here, it's a statement.
Yes,
Like,
Max. Yes.
yes.
And I couldn't agree more. And this is actually also something that Jamie Oliver has
Yes.
been working with other athletes on, because it's such a paradox that Olympic Games and World Cups and all the biggest sports arenas are promoting the food that is making people sick and also partly destroying our planet. And it use those sports stadiums as promotion arenas for what is absolutely bad for us and bad for the planet. So it should be the other way around. I mean, athletes are our most important ambassadors, because for sure they are not fueling their body with that junk. And although they can eat more junk without being sick than other people that are more inactive and so on, but still, if you ask Ronaldo, I mean, what is he eating? For sure, he's not eating burgers and drinking Coke every day. He wouldn't be able to perform. You started talking about how you feel different after eating better, and I mean, more clarity in your thinking, so on and so on. And we care more about what we are feeding our cats and dogs than what we are feeding our children.
True.
And we would never put the wrong gasoline or wrong fuel on our car, but we do that to our bodies, which is such a paradox. What has gone wrong with our food system, or the way we produce, the way we consume, and obviously what we waste, is a lot about the economy, and we really need to rethink what food is, and also start talking about the true cost of food, because a very interesting analysis shows that if we take into considerations all the damage caused by food production and our diets and all the food we waste, the damage on the environment, the damage on people's health, both from undernutrition and hunger and from obesity and overweight, and also obviously social inequalities, then the costs outweigh the value add to the global economy by $2 trillion every year, which is like mind-blowing number. But it just says that today we are getting it so wrong, because we are producing and eating what is making us sick and what is destroying our planet. And we also have now the science to say that it doesn't have to be that way. We could turn things around and we could start producing nutritious, mostly plant-based, but still there is still room for meat, but it just has to be less and much better quality, which is also good for the animals and the workers in the supply chain. And then obviously we could feed even more people than today on the planet if we did it different. So we need to rethink and reboot the food system, and that is something that no single actor, no organization, or business.
Let us both agree on one thing. The food platform alone is not going to be enough to save the world, right? We know this.
Exactly.
It's a lot more complicated than that.
What has gone wrong with our food system, or the way we produce, the way we consume, and obviously what we waste, is a lot about the economy, and we really need to rethink what food is, and also start talking about the true cost of food, because a very interesting analysis shows that if we take into considerations all the damage caused by food production and our diets and all the food we waste, the damage on the environment, the damage on people's health, both from undernutrition and hunger and from obesity and overweight, and also obviously social inequalities, then the costs outweigh the value add to the global economy by $2 trillion every year, which is like mind-blowing number. But it just says that today we are getting it so wrong because we are producing and eating what is making us sick and what is destroying our planet. And we also have now the science to say that it doesn't have to be that way. We could turn things around and we could start producing nutritious, mostly plant-based, but still there is still room for meat, but it just has to be less and much better quality, which is also good for the animals and the workers in the supply chain. And then obviously we could feed even more people than today on the planet if we did it different. So we need to rethink and reboot the food system, and that is something that no single actor, no organization,
let us both agree on one thing. The food platform alone is not going to be enough to save the world, right? We know this.
Exactly.
It's a lot more complicated than that. We can only tackle one thing at a time, but also, I think the other thing that I will share with you was I explained that I lost my brother to cancer, and that was through, of course, poor dietary eating and then a bout with alcoholism, which set him into, that's the other thing. Alcohol is the other thing which we sell so freely, and it goes with food, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
But now, I mean, and that is true. I mean, alcohol, tobacco, drugs, I mean, opioids in the States, all that is causing a lot of people dying too early and sickness, illness. But still, if we look at bad diets, it's responsible for more deaths every year than all of that together. Alcohol, tobacco, drugs, and even unsafe sex combined. Food is still the biggest killer, and that is still not high enough on the radar of policymakers. We accept kind of that 11 million people are dying every year of absolutely preventable diseases, heart disease, cancers, diabetes. They didn't need to die if we had enough healthy, nutritious, sustainably produced food available and affordable. So it really requires a systems transformation, and that is also important to say, because we in the past people blamed people from being obese, and it's not about individual responsibility or failure. I mean, the society today and the food environment is set up to people. Well, it's designed so you are almost becoming fat, sick, and depressed by default, and it shouldn't be that way. Food should nourish. It should be something good that is good for your body, that keeps you energetic and focused. And now we are being exposed for substances, food-like substances that are making us sick. Inflammation is a core driver of most modern diseases, for example. So we really need policymakers to step up, and having national dietary guidelines, for example, telling people what to eat. That is not enough. I mean, it's important with information, but unless that food that is good for you and good for the planet is actually available and at affordable prices, there is no chance most people can eat them. And also, food is driving social inequalities today, because the poorest people with least resources, they end up with the worst diets. We really need to redo and reboot, and everybody needs to do something, although obviously the most responsibility lies on the policymakers, on our governments, and also, of course, on big business. But we all have a role to play, and food is obviously a common denominator. We all have to eat, so we are all basically stakeholders in the global food system.
No, you're right. Question for you: which is the healthiest bunch of people in the world, country-wise?
Which country has the healthiest
health that you're talking about that you would like to attain?
Well, Japan has one of the healthiest populations.
Yes,
Interestingly enough, they live longest, and they are healthiest. They have a very, very low rate of obesity, of diabetes, all these modern lifestyle related diseases that we are seeing, and that is now also coming in countries in Africa, in Southeast Asia. So it's not only US and Northern Europe anymore. It's really happening across the world, and no country today has succeeded in reversing obesity. Your home country, UK, is
that's the worst.
It's the fattest European country. The fattest European country. I mean, 11% of the babies being born in the UK now is overweight at birth. And then it goes from there like this. And in the US, this generation children is the first generation that is not expected to outlive their parents because of obesity related diseases. And it's not because inactivity, of course, plays a huge role, but diet is the big killer. Babies are not obese because they are not moving enough. It's because they are eating the wrong food, and also because their mothers during pregnancy were eating the wrong food. So today, I mean, the food is killing us and it's killing our planet. And that is something that now awareness around this is spreading so fast. It has ended up on the top of the United Nations agenda. All countries in the world, basically 193 countries being members of the UN, are now addressing this, and they have to look into their policies, because the irony and the paradox here is that agricultural policies, agricultural subsidies are going to support the production of what is making people sick. Basically, the ingredients in junk food, it's wheat, soy, rice, and it's basically the ingredients in ultra processed junk and animal feed. We are feeding 1/3 of the grain in the world every year to animals, which is crazy when we know that the meat industry accounts for almost 15% of the global greenhouse gas emissions, which is crazy, and it occupies like more than 80% of the land in the world. And it just gives like 18% of the calories. So it's very, very inefficient, which a huge footprint on climate, on environment, biodiversity, and it doesn't really provide as many people with proteins as we could get if we were growing plants instead. So having said that, meat is not like all bad. There is 50 shades of red. And what we need to stop is factory farming. What is interesting is that China has actually set a target to reduce meat consumption by 30% by 2030.
That's a time.
And they have also now banned food waste. They have introduced a law against binge eating on social media. Food waste is not allowed because they see that this is an issue. And China, interestingly, has gone from having a very, very low percentage of obesity and diabetes. A couple of decades ago, they had like 1% of the population was diabetic. Now it has exploded, and it's like 10% of the Chinese population being diabetic. And countries like China and the UK are now, they are threatened by having their public health care system going bankrupt because of diabetes complications and the costs of chronic diet-related diseases, basically. So China is seeing that business as usual is not an option, and the COVID, the virus, that has also a lot to do with food. It's not only about a vet market in China.
The wet markets.
Yeah, the vet market is one thing, but banning vet markets is not doing the trick unless we stop our war on nature, as the UN, United Nations Secretary General has said. Unless we stop that war immediately, stop expanding and cutting down forests, expanding into natural ecosystems where wild animals live, and viruses. There are millions of viruses out there, and they will continue jumping onto humans. That is one thing. And the other is the way we treat animals and the way we factory farm. We have seen with the swine flu, with bird flu, that keeping thousands of almost genetically identical animals in small spaces, it's a breeding ground for pandemics.
Well, I agree. There's a house of horror. I mean, just how can we allow that? But that's what we do. And by the way, again, in my teens, in my 20s, in the 30s, I didn't know this is how farming was done.
Yeah.
You know, you just ate what you were given. And most people were doing that.
Max, this is interesting because there is a saying that if factory farms or slaughterhouse houses had glass walls, everybody would be a vegetarian. And this is also back to the power of photography, the power of art in creating awareness. Because what we have seen now, my 8 years in the food space, what I've learned is that getting the science, getting governments, getting business, getting investors, chefs, farmers around the table and understanding the science, that is not enough. Unless people care, unless you and me and our friends and families and people everywhere start to care about good food for all as a human right. It has to be healthy, it has to be tasteful, of course, it has to be sustainably produced for our planet. Unless we start to care and demand action from governments, from private sector, from companies everywhere, unless we demand better food for all, it's not going to happen fast enough. But how do you see your role and I mean in creating better food, almost like a fashion thing, so it becomes aspirational and everybody wants to join the movement? I mean, what you started out with, telling about your personal journey and experience, how can you inspire, and how can you, I mean, is it a doom and gloom and threatening with all the bad, or is it about showing what it could be and painting the picture of the promised land? What do you think?
I think there's you got to show, in my opinion, the truth, and then you got to show what you can do with that truth. So knowing that I've seen the walls of the abattoir like a glass, oh, that's what that is. You see it, you may not want to go there again. Knowing that you've seen 50 meters of nappies and garbage and color, you know, change your mind. And I think that's the way to do it, is to show negative and positive.
Yeah.
It can't all be positive, because the fact is, the world is not all positive, and you want to be able to show that.
People, they don't remember what you said, only what you made them feel, and pictures, images, visuals are so powerful in a totally different way. And I don't think we have enough artists and not enough creative people joining that movement. And the final thing I want to say is that there are so many problems, there are so many challenges in the world, but the power of food is that it brings it all together. And it's something that 5 billion people on the planet can actually do something about. 3 million don't have a choice, so leave them out. We need to work for them.
Don't have a choice.
But all of us that can have the luxury of enjoying nice piece of art, or can make choices in our grocery store, we can make small differences on our plates. We can vote for the right policymakers. We can put pressure on big companies, big food, if we are aware.